I'm in the process of tearing out the old streetohv harness. You know, I'm just snipping wires and plugging away, trying to get rid of that stuff there. And I've got to still rip out, you know, my old tail light and everything, which has held on there pretty decent, surprisingly, even at the dunes and everything. But some of these lights are starting to fall off and everything, so I'm basically just gonna go through, tidy everything up. And obviously this switch here is all jacked up too, like the button doesn't work on it anymore. I can't turn it on and off hardly, so I just zip tied it out of the way because I was starting to run into it with my hand. And basically there's a few things that I want to improve upon that are problems in the streetohv kit. Like for example, all of the connectors that hooked onto everything, it was just a rat's nest, you know, like all of these connectors, they broke off, so I had to cut them apart and solder them while I was on a ride out somewhere, you know. Like, it's just cheap connectors, cheap design. You can tell it's definitely just a made in China type thing. So I'm gonna redo it, make it look a lot better, a lot nicer. And basically I'm gonna start by pulling off everything I need to get to where all my other stuff is. Like, I'm gonna pull off this radiator shroud. I'm also replacing these lights with something else, and I have a more permanent mounting solution too than what I did before, which was like reuse the strap on these lights. But after a while I've kind of figured a few things out, and I'm gonna replace everything with better components, and hopefully it lasts me a lot longer. Like this wiring harness I got, it's even got a relay, and everything's braided. It's gonna be super nice. All the connectors are mostly already on there. It is a lot thicker than the other one, but it's a lot higher quality too, so I don't mind taking off an extra couple bolts to lift up my gas tank and wedge these wires underneath there to go all the way up to the top to the handlebars. But anyway, I'll take you along for the ride. This is why I can't recommend the streetohv harness to anybody. I mean, like, look at this wire right here. These stupid bullet connectors that I had to tape together to keep them from coming apart, and it just broke right off. I mean, it's just not ideal, and there's so much bulk, and it's just ugly, you know what I mean? And I had to zip tie the horn on here too to get it to stay, because it broke off a couple times. But anyway, here's the relay for the streetohv harness, which is way up here, which honestly I don't really love, because there's a lot more space for it back there, especially on Yamahas, because you have the little compartment for like the Wi-Fi box and everything right here, and the relay fits perfectly right there. So the new wiring harness, that's where I'm gonna put this relay. And this is also a lot higher quality relay. This isn't your Chinatown special. This is, you know, your normal automotive relay. A little bit better than whatever the heck this is that's got it broken, obviously. So that's why I'm going to use that. And this doesn't even have all the different pins on a normal relay like you would have. It's just got power in and negative, pretty much is what it looks like. But anyway, I'm starting to figure a few things out here and see what I want to keep, see what I want to get rid of, which is pretty much everything. So we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna keep taking it apart. I've got the shroud off, so you can kind of see the old mount and how that worked, but I don't really love that. So I've got a new headlight over here that I'm gonna put on it. These are little projectors, which will be a lot better for you guys that do mostly street riding. I do a lot of dirt stuff, so I might do a combination of the two or something to that effect. But these are amber and white lights, and they come with their own little brackets right here. So I'm gonna put these brackets onto these like that, and tuck them up in the same spot kind of, but it'll be a little bit different. It'll be more like what I did on my wife's bike, where I actually drilled the hole into this piece of plastic here, and then I trimmed the shroud just a little bit. I cut off some like right here to make room for the light, and it just ends up being way more sturdy, and it's a lot better design. Having it out like this, they just kind of flop around a little bit. I mean, if I had a better mount, it would be better, but I like mounting it right here. It's a lot easier, it saves time, and I mean, at the end of the day, if you just trim a tiny bit off of this, it's not going to affect your bike at all. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny little cube light. It's not blocking any airflow or anything, so I'm going to keep taking stuff apart and rip all this out. I've also got some LED lights up in here to shine up on the engine. I don't know if I've shown that before, but I'm gonna find a better way to connect those instead of the current setup and see how that works. Here's another example of one thing that I'm gonna hugely improve upon. All these little bullet connectors take up a bunch of space, and they're just hard to deal with because you gotta plug them in one by one, unplug them in one by one. I'm going to use a connector like this. This has 5 connections on one. And I got a bunch of these, so that's what I'll be using. It'll be a lot easier to just use that. And you plug it in once and you're done. This also has a waterproof seal on it, and it will screw together so that they won't have a possibility of coming apart. So it's another thing I'm doing just to make my life easier and make it a lot better and a lot nicer. Here's another example of things I want to improve on. I was pulling this out, and this is the spot that is underneath the gas tank, kind of right here-ish. And as you can tell, it almost is wearing through that wire. So I think that plastic braided stuff will do a lot better job of, you know, fixing friction and things like that instead of this weird, like, crappy cloth wrap thing. So that's what I'll be doing. I just snipped everything off of it, made it a lot easier. Got that big old rat's nest out of here, so there's your before, and you'll see what it looks like when I'm all done. Alright, on these Yamahas, to get the gas tank off, you just have to take that bolt off. Mounts right there, and then there's like a little clip thing pretty much right here. So if you just pull up on the front of the gas tank, then it will lift up, and then it's pretty much completely loose. Just be careful not to mess up the fuel line and the fuel pump connectors and everything. So that's pretty much all there is to look out for there, but that's how you get that off. And then you have access to the stock factory wiring spot, so you can run wires the same spot all the way up to the front. Okay, I got everything through, so relays right here. Sits in that pocket right next to your Wi-Fi module if you've got a Yamaha. And then basically I ran this, which is what's going to connect to the battery. It's fused, and I ran that on the left side, and then I ran everything else. There's just 2 wires on the right side, and basically I'm just going to kind of tuck it right next to the stock wires, and then it goes kind of the same path along with the stock wires. I'm going to end up zip tying all this later, but just follows the stock wiring path. There's some more wiring right behind it. I'll zip tie it to that, and then it goes through here on the inside of this bracket here, and then it goes all the way out the front, and it will clip in right there to that clip. And then these are the wires for the headlights right here. So I'll just connect both of those up on either side of the bike, and this is what's going to go to the switch to power everything up. These 3 wires are going to be going into the bar switch, and this is what that looks like. It's super simple. Left turn, right turn, headlights on and off, and your horn. But that's pretty much going to be the setup. And now I just gotta get everything wired together. I still haven't really done all of the wiring on this yet, but you guys are gonna kind of learn along with me a little bit here. I'm getting the headlights mounted up. This is the same spot that I mounted the lights for my wife's bike. No, it's not gonna be crooked like this. I just mounted it in this spot. On the Yamahas, they all have this air intake right here. And I mounted it so that I can tell how far down I need to cut this radiator shroud so that the light can sit facing forwards right here. But all the connectors are on it. Power, ground. I've got the blinkers on now. These are pretty straightforward. You just zip tie them around the fork tube. And I got this awesome waterproof connector on here, and it will not come apart. It's literally screwed together. And those are the 3 connectors that I still need to wire in so that the blinker and the running light works. But I'm getting a little bit more set up here. I'll probably need to trim just a little bit more behind as well, but it should sit something like that. When it's done, I'm just gonna cut off a little bit of this outer one so that it doesn't push it up or down, and I don't want to be pushing the back of the wire either, so that's why I'm gonna be trimming that up. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. If you're gonna do this yourself on some newer bikes of other brands like Kawasaki's and Hondas and whatnot, most of the plastics on newer bikes have this little tab right here that you can mount lights to if you need to. This is the original one that I did. So if you have to and you can't do it any other way, then you might be able to find a spot like that. Or another option is to find some clamps and mount them onto the bars, which is honestly probably the best option. I don't really like the look of it, but that's the best option because when you turn, then your lights follow your bars, which is super nice. But the floodlights that I had before worked good enough for me to see. These are little projectors, so they'll be a little bit different, but I'm hoping they still throw enough of a wide beam to see where I'm going, but I also like to have them hidden. But it's kind of up to you where you want to mount your lights. You can even mount them off of these clamps here. If you found a little mount that's the right size, or if you made one, you could do that. There's really a bunch of options. You could cut a couple holes in your number plate and mount them like that. You can even run a bolt through these forward handlebar mounts and then cut a hole in your plate if you wanted to do that. But I just like the clean look of having them right there. I think it looks the best. When I'm all done, you'll understand why I think that's the best route. But yeah, I'll keep you guys updated as I keep moving on here, but just got a lot more wiring to do, and then I'll be able to show you the finished product. Both the lights are mounted up. All I did was trim out a little bit of this guard here and a little bit off the back. And then I also drilled a hole through it on the top for the wire to go. And then it goes around with these other ones through the metal clip right here. And on the other side, I did pretty much the same thing, except I wanted to keep it off of the radiator a little bit right here, so I just threw a zip tie on that. Just drilled a couple holes, and then that wire is zip tied on this side, and then it loops around, goes through the same spot, and they will both end up right here on the front fender, and I'll plug them right in. But that's the final spot they're gonna be. And these can also they also have room to move up and down. This looks flimsy right now, but that's because nothing is bolted onto it holding it. Once the shrouds are back on, it makes it a lot stronger, and they don't really move around at all. My previous setup rattled around a little bit just because it wasn't supporting the weight of the light directly from above, which is a lot better. So anyway, that's how the lights are gonna look. And I'm still trying to decide if I want to try and put like a floodlight on the bottom of that, because there's another spot where I could thread in a floodlight like the ones I have now, and then I could technically have dual pods right there and they'd both be hidden. So I might do that in the future. We'll have to see how bright these little guys are, or I might just go back to the floodlights period. But we'll see. I'm gonna give it a shot and see how much I like them. Trying to figure out exactly how I want to wire this up. So on the switch up here that I mounted on the bars, which by the way, you're gonna need new grips, because to get this on you have to take off the grip because there's no like slot on it. I also relocated the kill switch farther over because I don't really use it as much as I would use this if I was riding it on the street. So it's not a big deal to just scoop my hand over to kill the bike when I need to. But anyway, got everything pretty much wired up. So there's the light, and the indicator comes on when you press it, and that activates the relay and turns on the whole system. And then you got your left blinker, right blinker, and the horn. But basically I'm just testing all of these wires to make sure that I'm plugging it in right. So this is positive for power, negative for ground, and that goes into the switch to power all the blinkers and everything like that. And that's just tapping into the relay power that's going to be for the headlights as well. So basically, as soon as I turn the switch on that handlebar switch, it activates the relay using these two wires here. And this one is just for a LED indicator that was on the old switch, but I'm not going to be needing that, so I'll end up just capping that off. But basically that's positive, negative, and then the rest of these wires are going to be for blinkers and also for the tail light. And then I've got my banjo bolt right here, which I will also include in the kit, and then that will control the rear brake light. And that's just a pressure switch off of the master cylinder. So that's how that's going to work. But I'm pretty far into it, but that's pretty much where I'm at for now. And also I made a custom little bracket for the rear brake light, and I 3D printed this. I'll probably also end up including these in the kit or something similar to it. If you choose, it will be kind of like an add-on type thing, but I still need to modify the dimensions just a little bit to get it to fit perfectly how I want it. But the idea is there's these mounting spots, and you can either rivet it in, screw it in, whatever, but it's basically going to fit in there just like that. But this is just kind of like the prototype design. I'm going to end up making it a little bit taller so that it sits more like that, and I'm going to make it so that it fits the exact cut of the fender so that it looks nice and clean. And then if you have a different brand of bike like a Kawasaki or whatever, KTM, then what you can do is actually heat this up with a heat gun, and then it will bend into the shape that you need it. But if I make it for the Yamaha, it should be pretty close for everything else. I mean, everything is a little bit different, but they're pretty darn close in the rear, so that's what I'm going to end up doing. This was actually not nearly bent this much, and I just bent it with the heat gun and a little bit of time, you know, but it fits the light perfectly, and the idea is that this will keep out any dirt and water and things like that that will keep this from sticking. So you can glue this in here, or you can just use the double backing tape, but personally I think it's better to find another way to glue it in there other than just the tape. The tape is okay, but it doesn't really hold that well. Another option would be to just run a piece of something over this to hold it in nice and tight. I might end up doing something like that in the final design, but anyway, that's pretty much where I'm at so far. But yeah, I've got the battery wired up just temporarily to test everything, and everything seems to be working fine. And now I've just got to finish up doing the tail light, and I need to rewire in my little blue LEDs that I like to have on when I'm at the dunes and whatnot. But pretty much that's where I'm at right now, and I've got a lot more wiring to do, but I'll be testing everything out. It's all back together. Everything's on. I just still need to wait for my 3D printed piece for this, but it all works. Everything's all wired up, and it's all hidden right behind the number plate. Fit in there no problem. And there's the headlights hiding right in there. If I turn everything on, this is the switch. So that's your power, and that turns on the headlights and the brake light and everything. The brake light does work. There's your high beam thing for brake light. And left turn, you can tell left turn is working, and then it switches back to white. Right turn, same thing, and then it switches back to white. And also on here it shows you what is on and what is off, which is super nice. The horn, don't really want to hit that, but it works. You just jam that and the horn will go. I have the horn mounted right here off of this same bolt, so it just sits down in there. This is what the headlights look like right there, just hiding. And they like are projectors, so they have a nice clean cutoff on the wall, you can kind of tell. But yeah, it's pretty bright. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I'll have to take a video of what the lights look like at night. But yeah, that's the whole kit. It's pretty easy. It took me a lot longer because this is the first one I made, but for you, all it would be is run the wires from the back to the front, plug everything in, and you're done. Super easy. It'd probably take you like, I don't know, maybe an hour to do it. But that's it. That's the whole kit done. I'll 3D print that tail light mount, and then I'll post another video. That's what the headlights are gonna look like. There's all that. And I just measured and made a little template for the 3D printed thing I'm gonna make. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty easy, straightforward. Okay, here's the final prototype, I guess is what I would call it, of the mount for the LED tail light. Basically, the light will sit inside of that channel there, and this is thicker on the top just so that the light can sit farther down, because for example on a rear fender for a Yamaha there's a little bit of a lip on the inside of there, so I wanted to be able to see all of the light. Or I guess if you wanted it closer, you could shave a little bit of that top off and tuck it up under there, or I can just have two different options. But anyway, basically I traced the outline of the fender with a piece of cardboard, and I just measured how wide it was, how far to the point, and how long each one of these sides was to get the copy. And this I did on the inside of the fender, but I kind of traced the outside of the fender with the cardboard, but these measurements are from the inside. So with that, I was able to make that model, and this is the completed 3D printed piece. I was also thinking about putting some blue LEDs on the back side of this inside here to light up like the wheel and stuff, but anyway, that's what it looks like, and that should fit perfectly onto the back of the fender. And I just used my 3D printer that I have to do this, and it will be black when I'm actually going to put it on the bike, but white is the filament that I normally use just to test things out and see if they're gonna fit well or not. But yeah, that's how I did it.